Thank you, Eric. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get us started then. I'm Marisela Velasquez. I'm the senior, or not, actually, I'm not the senior anymore. I am the bilingual outreach communications supervisor that just was given about, I don't know, a couple months ago. Seems like, but I am glad to be here. I'm not sure if I was able to meet some of you, but I was at the Stockton in-person meeting that we had earlier on in April. So I did have the pleasure of meeting some of you. I do work with a lot of the other AB 617 communities, particularly Arvin Lamont, Shafter, and a little bit of the Fresno, as my team actually does a lot of the translation for these communities as well. And then I kind of help to lead some of the presentations as well and helping to facilitate those meetings. So I'm happy to be here with this community now as well. Like I said, I've been doing some of the actual in-person meetings with you guys now, and I've actually been in some of the outreach subcommittees as well. So I'm happy to be with you guys as well. And then I'll go ahead and hand it off to Janine, I guess, at this point, and then we can just popcorn it around.
Thank you. Janine Tackett, Supervising Air Quality Specialist in the Grant Department. I oversee all of our air filtration programs as well as our truck programs, and I've been working with this group for a while now. It's great. We're coming close to a major milestone, so really excited to provide updates on that today and hear what else we need to do. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jazz Marie.
All right, sorry, trying to toggle between my screens here. And so some of the things that are we just intros now? Sorry, I'm Jazzy. Hi, nice to meet you guys. Jazz Marie Latour, feel free to call me Jazzy. I'm a resident here in the Stockton area. I also do work with folks with asthma for the DAWN program, Decreasing Asthma Within Neighborhoods. And so get a firsthand experience with indoor air quality, remediation and mitigation and things like that. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to, and also the co-facilitator in this space. I'll pass it to Kevin.
Cool. Thank you, Jazzy. What's going on, everyone? Kevin Sunga. I'm now the Grants and Sustainability Director of Little Manila Rising. And I'm formerly one of the Health Equity Directors managing the COVID programming. So I've been with this group for about 6 to 7 months, helping cover for Elaine, but I kind of stuck with it. This has been really great work. And I'm also the co-facilitator with Jazzy on this subcommittee. So I'm happy to talk about outreach for this meeting. Before I get ahead of myself, I'll pass it over to Kyle.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Kevin. I think as most of you know, I'm Kyle Goff. I'm with CARB. I work on the incentive side of things. And so, yeah, I'm mostly just here to provide some general support and just like CARB's sort of knowledge base, and, general knowledge on incentives as well. And yeah, I suppose I'll pop it over to oh, hey, Margo just joined us. Eric, did we go to you yet? I feel like we didn't.
No, not yet. No, you're good. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Salas. I am an air quality specialist in the Community Strategies and Resources team. I am the community liaison for the Arvin and Lamont community. Actually, I am stepping in for Stephanie Ng. She's in a different meeting today, so I'll be handling all the logistics and all the little small AB 617 things that you may need. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Margo. I don't know if you could hear us, Margo.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Yeah, I just got on. Sorry about that. I'm Margo Prouse. I'm a resident at the AB 617 Stockton Community Group. Okay. Hi.
Perfect. Welcome. Thank you all then. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen so we can see the agenda, and we'll just go quickly through that. I'm not sure usually how Stephanie handles that, but I'll go ahead and can you guys see this agenda? Is that what you're seeing, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, see the agenda looks perfect.
Okay, perfect. For some reason, I'm not sure what screen I'm sharing. Okay, so here we are on the agenda for today. I don't know if she goes through all the objectives, but I think you guys also have the link. So identifying additional outreach partners and discuss outline steps for outreach with anticipated date of program launch. And so we already did the introductions, and we'll start off with the IAQ project updates and project expansion. I'll stop sharing just so you can see us better. I was able to talk to Stephanie earlier today, and she was really happy and wanted me to share with this group that we are actually going to be launching kind of at about the same time as the AB 617, what's the word I'm looking for? The clean air room project, which is the valley-wide project for the air purifiers. And we're launching it right around the same time as the one for specific AB 617 communities. So as we're launching it for the AB 617 communities, we are also going to launch that valley-wide where we can get those other individuals in the Stockton area, as well as other parts of the valley as part of that group. And I'll let Janine probably expand on that if you guys have any questions or if she has anything else to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Maricela. Yeah, we're really excited to be able to get multiple areas, not just our 617 communities, but also the valley-wide portion reopened. So last week, our board approved putting another $1 million into the valley-wide program. And this is definitely going to be helpful, especially for the Stockton area, where there is a clear boundary within the city itself of 617 versus not 617. So we should hopefully avoid any confusion to the Valley residents with that. The programs will launch with the same application, the same portal. Everything will be virtually identical on the applicant's side of the equation. And then as they come into my team, as they come through the portal into our database, we will then start separating them out based on which pot of money they're going to be funneled to. So our 3 different 617 communities and then the valley-wide pot of money. That way we make sure that that we're not accidentally, crisscrossing applications and funding them from the wrong areas. So we'll be handling those logistics on our side. But as far as the residents are concerned, it's going to be the same for them. So again, to help avoid any confusion, we don't want people unsure where to apply or what to apply for. It'll just be on our webpage as the Clean Air Rooms program. Where the difference will come will be in outreach. And so, we definitely will have more targeted outreach for the 617 community, for the Stockton residents, and helping to get the word out through that more targeted outreach to those communities. As far as where we're at in launching, we are getting close to ending our solicitation for the vendors. We've received several bids from various vendors. Some have been right in line with what we were expecting, and then some were like, oh boy. So, I can definitely, share. We've got one vendor which we've known for a while. They are historically on the far side of the pricey range. And their bid came in as such, with their devices being quoted out at $1,000 per device. So yeah, Jazzy, I had the same reaction. I was like, wow, okay. We did make it clear in our workshop that we're looking for devices around the $200 price point. But clearly, there will be some variation from one brand to the next. So I was a little shocked that they went ahead and submitted that, but that's okay. We'll review it and it will score accordingly. But I don't have any concern of having enough vendors. We do have several that do have really nice devices and are quoting in right at our expected price point. We've also found that some are offering a discount for like a coupon for future filter purchases, which I thought was really great, because that was a big concern amongst the communities. How will these residents that are on a fixed or low income afford to purchase filters moving forward? So we do have a couple of companies already that are offering essentially a coupon code. So when they can enter that coupon code and receive a discount on future filter purchases. So that was a really nice little thing that we didn't ask for and we weren't really expecting, but might really make it easier and more feasible for long-term use by the residents. So timeline, what we're looking at, we'll be closing the RFQ on the 1st. We'll receive quotes and bids up through, basically they need to be postmarked by the 1st. So they have until midnight on the 1st to submit those. And then we'll be reviewing those over the next couple of weeks and making our selections based on our scoring criteria. With the hope that we'll be able to have at least one vendor under fully executed contract by June 1st so that we can open for application. We really want to make sure we have at least one under fully executed contract so that we can, just hit the ground running. If for some reason the contracting process is delayed, sometimes we have to go back and forth with company lawyers and such to make sure everybody's comfortable with the contract requirements. That might get pushed out, but we're still really pushing hard for June 1st opening of the application portal. And then based on that, we would anticipate being able to place our first orders most likely within a couple of weeks. So we're figuring about June 15th, the first orders being placed, as it does take a little time to work through those applications and make sure they're all buttoned up and we've got the right information and such. So that's kind of where we're looking. We're getting very close, and so far we seem to be right on track. So hopefully there's no hiccups along the way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jenny. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. No, it all sounds great, Janine. We're excited for the program rollout on the 1st. And that's a very, like, thinking ahead. That's good that there are quotes out there with vendors offering coupon codes for filter purchases for future replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Does that factor into your selection criteria?
It doesn't, because we didn't think about that in the beginning, but that doesn't mean that it can't be a tiebreaker when push comes to shove. So, I think we will definitely consider it, although we don't have it technically as part of the scoring criteria.
Okay, no worries. I just wanted to check, like, if where that criteria was,
And I think too, Kevin, with that being said, like, as we've even thought about it here, we're like, wow, that could be very valuable to residents moving forward. And so it's possible that if we find that we have maybe, let's say, 4 vendors that we select and 3 of them have offered coupon codes and 1 did not, we just simply go to the one and say, hey, everybody else is offering this. Can you offer it too? And just see if they'll step up and meet the same, same things that the other vendors are. So we could definitely, play with that and see how it all pans out. But I think it is a great thing that they're offering. And my hope is that we can see it across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Margot?
Yeah, this is Margot. I might be getting ahead of this, but say you have your vendors chosen, the outreach has happened, people are starting to come in. How do you separate the community residents into the different vendors?
Yeah, so what we'll do is, my initial plan is that we'll, before we launch, we'll identify a vendor per community or per area. And so for our 3 617 communities that are launching, we'll select, basically attach a vendor to each one. So that way the community is getting predominantly all the same device, same filter. You don't have one neighbor with one device and one with a different one, and then be like, well, theirs is white and it matches my living room better than this black one. And, I don't know, just, the different things that differences they'll see. Now, with that being said, we also have to be cognizant of inventory. While we are asking what their current inventory is, we're also asking, how long does it take you to restock or pull in more inventory if the need arises? And so we will be looking at those types of things when we assign a vendor to a community. For example, the Shafter community is much smaller than the Stockton community as far as the number of residents. And so, if we have a vendor that has a lower inventory, we may attach that to a smaller community area boundary. and looking at just making sure that we don't have any big interruptions in the amount of time to get from when we get the application in to when we can get a device delivered to them. That's my main goal, is to avoid any big, dips in time where somebody has to wait several weeks or a month or more because a vendor doesn't have inventory in stock. So while we may do a signing of vendors, we will also be fluid in the sense that if a vendor does run low on inventory, we can pull from any of the vendors, so that we don't have an interruption in processing.
Okay, any other comments or questions before we move on to the next item? Doesn't sound like it. So then we'll go on to the next item, which is the outreach and a partnership discussion. And I have here that Kevin and Jazzy would take this on.
So I'm Jazzy. I don't know. It's either us, but I'll quickly just go over. I think at the in-person meeting that we had for the CSC, there was a really great exercise that was done at the outreach table for indoor air quality. And I'm just going to put it here into the chat, and I could even share my screen to just go over quickly the two areas. But right now, since the program rollout is expected to be June 1st, we're really looking at now outreach and how do we partner with the outreach subcommittee? What does outreach look like for getting filters into the hands of residents? And so let me just share my screen real quick. And I just dropped the Jamboard onto the chat if you wanted to follow along. But this was the question, like if we had when we hold in-person distribution events within the boundary, considering which organizations should we partner with, and we're within the boundary we would like to see an event. And that's what we're going to dedicate a lot of time to discussing. And then also in the next section for what do in-person events look like. But I think what we've decided in this subcommittee is doing a hybrid distribution. So first come, first serve, and then hold it, and also getting into the hands for those who are within like priority, even with the priority populations, such as having a pre-existing health condition like asthma, even within the AB 617 boundary. And so some organizations that were listed were LMR, San Joaquin County Public Health Service, North Valley Labor Federation, and Apsara, which is a Southeast Asian Cambodian residential community, and other organized. So I think there were a couple of vendors that were mentioned: the Ace Hardware, True Value, Home Depot, California Conservation Corps, Downtown Stockton Alliance, Stockton Downtown Comeback Club, and then Visionary Home Builders and Housing Authorities. The Port of Stockton, Grid Alternatives, Catholic Charities, Puentes. So a lot of folks who work on environmental justice work, Agricultural Org County, and Western Farm Workers Association, Food Bank, and Animal Shelter. So there's a variety of organizations. And something I wanted to open up to everyone on this call is there anyone that is missing, or anyone that you want to emphasize that we should be working with more?
This is Margot. I'm just wondering how we interface with the Asthma Coalition. I know I think they handle quite a few of the asthma cases, but are they involved in our discussions at all?
Yeah, is it CVAC or Central
Yeah.
Valley Asthma?
Kevin Hamilton, who's I forget what the organization is.
Yes, Kevin
CCAC?
Hamilton.
Yeah, that's CVAC, isn't it?
No,
No.
it's Central California Asthma Collaborative, CCAC.
Oh, I'm thinking of the I'm getting them mixed up.
I got them mixed up too. But we are in communication. But I think Jazzy works particularly close with them too, and we're talking to Cynthia and keep her informed.
Yeah, and just to kind of we can add CVAC on here on this list because they offer services from between Fresno all the way up to Stockton as well. And then that organization is pretty awesome because, dealing with asthma, they're talking to and about indoor air quality.
Okay, we'll definitely add CCAC. I know their organization has been part of this work group in the past. I know they moved into urban greening, but they were a very important part of this conversation. So we'll continue to work with them and loop them and add them to organizations we should continue to partner with. Thank you, Margot.
Great.
Any other organizations? Okay. And then we'll also leave that open for a topic. If there's anyone else that we should think of, we could always revisit this when it comes closer to outreach. And then also looking into boundaries that we want to see an event. There was mention of Victory Park. Wednesdays, there looks like there are live events that happen there. Community centers, I-5 and Navy Drive, at Conway Homes and near Van Buskirk, and also Lewis Park. So there's a lot of emphasis on hosting at parks, and I think we also talked about having it at, depending on who gets selected, at the vendor location. So we have a direct connection to the the actual resource of the filters.
I'm going to add also, Kevin, to Hatch Workshop, just because I think that they have a really broad outreach in our as well.
Cool. Thank you.
A
And
lot of youth come there. Were we looking at or thinking about any other locations outside of the ones on the slide? Should I make a separate little bullet point for that?
for Hatch Workshop?
No, sorry, for other locations. For events.
Oh, yes. And then I know there was an emphasis on parks. I've been thinking of like community spaces. I know there's a couple like downtown. There's a Huddle co-working space that's been a pretty strong supporter of a lot of organizations here in town, and also faith-based organizations that fall within the AB 617 boundary. From our experience when we've done a lot of like outreach and larger events, especially geared towards like environment and health, are some of the religious organizations and the churches have been, very generous to host us, and kind of align and trying to get the outreach and the drive, getting connected to the congregation, to the resources.
I had a question for Janine actually on the events and the models, like in your guys' in y'all's like experience doing the lawnmower swaps and stuff. Do you think that it should be, or is it available for people to sign up at the events, or is it only for like pickup if they've had prior sign up and it's been vetted, things like that?
So what we have found through experience is that it runs much better if we have RSVP, where we've received application from them, we've gone through, we've approved them, I should say pre-approved them. So the day of the event, we just simply have them sign their form and get their new equipment. With that being said, though, there is always a group of people that don't show up. And so then we've got these open slots. And so I think our last lawnmower event, we had put into practice several lessons learned and structured it a little different. So when folks showed up, just kind of, showed up without RSVPing, we got their information from them and we gave them a time in which to come back, or if they wanted to stay and wait, they could. But we said at this time of day is when we will cut off accepting anybody, even if they've RSVP'd, they must be here by this time. So after that point, I think on that day it was 11 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the, so it was something, let's call it noon. At noon, come back and we will start first come, first serve on this wait list. So we basically had them sign up and put themselves on a wait list. And then they knew at that designated time, they needed to come back and we would start working through the wait list on any remaining product we had that did not get claimed by RSVPs. And that seemed to go over real well. The people understood. They were appreciative of not having to just stand around in the event that, you know, they lived nearby. They just went home, and at 12 o'clock they came back. We had already gotten their information and mapped their address. And so it was much easier to then, you know, process them through. In the case of air filtration, we do have that one difference of needing verification of their address, so that document. So, but again, if they brought it with them, or during that wait period before the time reached, if they could go home and get a document and bring it back to us, we can easily snap a photo and attach it to their project when we get back in the office. So I think that we still will have that ability, although to have the process run as smooth as possible, I think the messaging would be, you need to RSVP to ensure receipt of a device. No guarantees will be made if you just walk in day of. You know, so, and you know, I suppose it's possible we could consider or discuss, you know, having a certain number set aside for those kind of walk-ups. But it definitely is much more time consuming to try to get all their information, map them, get their documentation. And so that could cause some delays in the process if we intermingle it in. I think my preference would be to do like we did on the last lawnmower one, and just take a wait list and tell them to come back at a certain time. And then whatever we do still have left available will be handed out based on that list.
Thank you.
The other thing, just real quick, just sorry, another quick thought is, if somebody does come and we don't have devices left, we can always sit with our computer and help them apply through the portal. So that way one gets delivered to their house without them, you know, getting confused or feeling like they don't have a computer at home to use and they don't feel comfortable using their phone, or whatever the situation is. We can have staff there to help them apply through the regular process if they are unable to participate in the in-person event.
Yeah, I like that a lot, because I know people can call in and do the application and stuff, but people there to help the day of. I think that's really great. Thank you.
And I know we're getting, well, I love this discussion because now we're getting into, you know, what do these events entail? And it sounds like a lot of like direct support for community. Necessarily, if they haven't signed up prior, like it sounds like it's essential for someone that's there to you know, of course, like think about language support and trying to help them navigate through the process so they could get the resources. And so I'll just do one last call if there's anything else that we should add for this one, for any events you want to see in the boundary or any organizations we should partner with. And if anything, just feel free to message us. But if not, then I'll hand it back to Marcella to move us into the next. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So looking at the agenda, I think that does go back and leads into that in-person outreach in terms of locations. It looks like we kind of already took care of that. Even what does this event look like? I'm just looking at the agenda. Sorry, let me go ahead and share my screen really quick. We know where we're on the agenda. Do we want to add anything to any of these items? Because it kind of did lead into that other part of the section, which in-person outreach event kickoff. Locations, I know we talked about some of those several parks. Is there one that specifically like reaches out or jumps out at you that you think we would want to have? Or I know that we've talked about in the past, and even talking to Stephanie earlier today, it sounds like, you know, we also need to have a location that can hold the purifier, the air purifiers, right? So we need to be able to have storage space, and maybe a park might not be as ideal because we wouldn't have the mobility, the ability to be able to store that, because they probably will be dropped off like the night before, so that we are able to hand them off. And so that would just, I think, kind of limit us as to what we do. We're willing to do anything, but there is just some limitations in some of the different locations. And then we also need, from just even our experience, right, Janine, on like the lawnmower events, like we need to make sure that we're not going to be blocking traffic, because we do end up having a line. So we need to make sure it's not in a busy street or a busy intersection. So those are the kinds of things that we need to look or think about before we, jump on that actual location. Let's see what else, blocking traffic.
If I could jump in really quick, maybe some parking spaces or some parking space for some of those folks that will be waiting, because I know in our Fresno event, there was like a perfect setup where there was a few stalls of parking where some of those folks could wait because they might be blocking traffic, if not the line or whatever it may be of residents trying to get these air filters. But that's just some of my experiences here.
Eric, that's a great one, because we did. And again, this kind of goes back to all the lessons we learned from the first event we did to the most recent one. Having that spot for those people that do want to wait to see if they can get on the list and get one, that was real. And this last event we had was a great spot. It was a shaded area, so people could sit in their cars and wait without their cars running. We don't want to encourage somebody to sit idling their vehicle, because that just adds to the problem, right? So definitely a few logistics to think about, and location for traffic is a huge one. So
Where was that last event? Was that the Ace Hardware we talked about?
The last event we did was at Alert-A-Light in South Central Fresno. Were they technically an Ace Hardware too?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so they were like a combo location. They were Alert-A-Light and Ace Hardware all in one. But they were in a very industrial area. And that was the one that they were at the end of a cul-de-sac, essentially. So you basically turn down their street and there's just this big dead end roadway that really worked out nicely, except for the business that was on the other side that wanted to get through, and we were blocking their way in, but it was only a truck or two. So
yeah. And
Um,
because this is probably going to be, just so that you guys, it will probably need to do earlier morning, just because it is also going to be probably warmer if we're going to think about doing this in June.
Very true. Do you think this is something then we need to consider after the RFQs all are, approved?
Yeah, well, I think that a final decision on location probably should wait until we know our vendors, because that could definitely change your decision or be a tiebreaker between one versus the other. I know that Ace Hardware is wanting to apply. I haven't gotten their bid yet. I have spoken with them a couple of times, and they're working through some lessons learned that they had through the pilot program in just how to manage that volume of orders. And so, clearly if they do apply and we do accept their bid, they're definitely a great one to work with, because they do have, obviously the storefronts that can help with the inventory, receipt, and storage. And we have talked about the potential of, if it is held at a park, because logistically for traffic and everything else, that is the most suitable place. If a store can accept delivery for us and then help to load, say like a U-Haul truck or something with the product, that we could then drive to the location. So I think we've got some options, but again, it would just be, hammering out the logistics and who's willing to do what and who's wanting to partner with us on what portions of that process. So, but I think we do have a lot of different options.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of, if, and I know you mentioned before too, that some of the candidates possibly are like online only. And so if they have like a way of distributing on a truck and like having some pallets available, or something, then I think a park and maybe one more central to like South Stockton, like Victory Park is a great park. There's only like it's further away from like what I'm thinking, the greater part of South Stockton.
Yeah.
And for accessibility reasons, like maybe exploring another park in the South Stockton areas, maybe McKinley Park or Williams Brotherhood Park or something like that. And Sierra Vista or even Van Buskirk has a big community center, big parking lot, big trees that have shade, and it's off the freeway also. So that's a good option as well. And that's what I was asking too about, like the storage. If it wasn't a storefront, do you think maybe partnering with a community center would be beneficial?
You know, I think the community center, it would just depend on what their facilities like. So I would imagine at the volume that we're going to be doing, we're talking about pallets of product. And so do they have a place that they can receive delivery of that size order? And some do. Some are, you know, in large enough facilities and have access for large delivery trucks to bring the pallets in. Do they have the ability to move those pallets around so that they can get them into a secure location? So I think we're definitely open to considering that option as long as their facility is capable of handling it. I also think that we could, if we do have online vendors where they don't have a storefront, that's not to say they don't have the means in which to get product to a location. And like I said, it might be a scenario where we have it delivered to a district, one of our district offices, maybe our northern office, and hold it there and then load it into a U-Haul truck and drive it in. So I think there are a lot of options. It's just once the time is right, picking the best one for the best end result. I don't know what others think, but I really am intrigued by the thought of doing it like in a park setting, especially since it's going to be a little bit closer into the heat of summer. Usually a park will have more shade and a little bit just cooler micro environment. It also gives us more space to bring in more informational booths and allow a little bit more free flow of the community members to engage us in a variety of, information gathering and discussions and such. So I feel like it is, if we can figure out the logistics, I think it would be a really fun experience to see how much can we tag on to just giving them the air filter, because I think there's a lot more to the information sharing and, just that assistance that we can give them across the CBOs and, even maybe inviting other companies to come represent other services that are kind of tied into this, weatherization services and things of that nature. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I definitely know I'd like to see if we could make the logistics work on it.
Yeah.
Are we thinking, this is Margot again, of having, how the pilot project was apply online and it was mailed to you? Is that part of an option for our program as well right now?
Yes, that's the main option. So that's like the standard main route that everybody will be going. And then these in-person events will be like the secondary option that will be held at some interval throughout the program.
So do we need to connect with public health nursing as well as social services for the homebound people and the people that don't get out to events and maybe don't have computers? Or is that what our outreach is going to be doing to some degree?
Well, I think, I don't know. Let me just say that. I don't know. I think that there are a lot of different angles of outreach here, but, I can say that for those folks that are maybe not tech savvy or connected to the internet, we do have the ability, and we did this with our pilot program. Those folks just call in to our office, and over the phone, we get their info, we put it in through the portal, and then they send us either through mail or fax, or even if they're able to snap a picture on their phone of their utility bill and send it to us. So we do have a process in place for those folks. Probably the one thing we'd maybe want to consider making a little bit more robust is getting in touch with those people and letting them know that we are here to help them. And that's kind of where that outreach comes in. Like, hey, we've got this great portal, but if you need assistance, please call us. We can assist over the phone.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So that kind of leads us into that next question, which was, what does this event look like? And then we've already talked a little about, so it's going to be a hybrid option where we do the portal or the online system in addition to doing the event, the in-person event. Anything else that we need to add in terms of any other suggestions on partners or, and I know we have here funding. Any others on that? If not, we can then go on to the next item on the agenda, which is just questions and next steps.
Yeah, for previous events that you've held, like for the lawnmower exchange, have you had food available for like the public for these events, or what did that look like?
Yeah, we had community members, and let's see, the Shafter one, I think, was that a CBO that helped us with that one? And then Fresno was community members. I remember Fresno, to be honest with you, because I got to sample some of it. We had some absolutely beautiful ladies from the community make breakfast burritos, like homemade breakfast burritos, and they were amazing. And these ladies came out and handed out the burritos, engaged with their fellow community members, and it was really fun. And then at the Shafter one, I feel like it was at one of the CBOs there. They provided hot dogs and sodas, and again, engaged the residents that came out, handed out the food, interacted with them, and that was really nice too. It was a little bit different setup, but I think in both cases worked well. But yes, we're all about food, and if we can bring some food in, like, even better. That helps intrigue people and spark their interest to get over to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you, Janine. Yeah. So this is Marisela. What we've done in the past is our group, which is Jamie Holt, our Chief Communications Officer. We kind of just connect with one of those. We do need to have some sort of a CBO, right? Because we issue a check, a small stipend, to be able to help cover the cost. And hopefully there's a little bit of extra so that they can keep it, for themselves to be able to do something else in the community. But we leave it up to them to decide kind of what they want to offer. And it also, I think, depends on the time that they go out there. So some of them have opted to do breakfast burritos with the water and salsa. These women in the Fresno, they made homemade salsa and like put all of that together for us. So again, it would just be dependent on what the community wants to do or that CBO wants to do and what they have the ability to, because these were homemade, like they made them from scratch. And so again, that's something that we would partner with on one of those CBOs.
Okay, that sounds good. Because I know in previous conversations, that was that little funding line, was Stephanie mentioned that there was like the possibility of mini grants to help support events. Is that what you're referring to, or is this like a separate funding stream?
I think it might be different, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know usually this is something that we run through the outreach communications department, and maybe
Got it.
Eric has a little bit more.
Yeah, so just speaking on, since this is AB 617, it's a little bit different. And like Mari said, this is more of a stipend, not necessarily, from some of those other funding pots. But yeah, because we do issue a check. And just speaking on Arvin and Lamont, we did have some of the community members actually bring champorado, which is
Nice.
a Hispanic drink.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how we handled that process for the AB 617 community.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. We're looking at what that model looks like because we definitely want to support and like help coordinate, since we've held events in the past, and want to help you and get a strong turnout for these events. But just wondering, yeah, like what does that look like in terms of like funding opportunity to help make that happen for you.
Yeah, and I can't say exactly how much right now off the top of my head, like how much it was, but I do know that what we look for is how many people were, like, let's say we only have 100 purifiers that are available to give out, then we're going to try to do about 100, whatever that food item, 100 burritos, 100 hot dogs.
Yeah.
So it'll be like one per device. So it'll be something like that.
Oh, okay. So there's a ratio involved in compare. Okay.
Correct.
I just blanket. Okay. That's good to know then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions in that category then?
Hi, this is Eric. I'll just keep in folks' minds that you know, a lot of these foods were like quick foods, you know, because a lot of people are just picking up their air filters and, you know, heading out. So maybe something that's wrapped in foil, like that breakfast burrito was, and some of the hot dogs were. And yeah, we could just hand that out quickly, just so we could keep the line moving and not necessarily keep folks idling as well, just to promote some of our mottos. But thank you.
Good points, Eric. Thank you.
Probably water along that same line.
Correct. Yes.
No
Okay.
other thoughts from me. I think that's good. I was wondering if our next meeting won't be until or like our scheduled meeting won't be until June.
Yeah. And
and
yeah, I
so-
did mention that to Stephanie. Sorry about that. But yeah, we did mention to Stephanie, and she says that we can actually just meet together beforehand. If you guys want to just kind of go over some of the logistical stuff, we can definitely meet beforehand. And I'll just have her kind of coordinate that with you all in an email and set something before that time frame, if that's what you guys want to do.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So we
Okay.
can be a part of that discussion.
Perfect. I will go ahead and have her schedule something then.
Yeah, sounds good with me too.
All right. Any last then questions or next steps? In well, I think for next steps, we can just say have another meeting before the next official meeting.
I think one thing that we wanted to add was the application process, just to go over it. Because we understand how it goes, but to be able to articulate it to the residents and for us to understand, you know, on the leadership level for the subcommittee. So that was just something else that we wanted to include for future discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that'll probably be Janine's team, and we can probably gather like the types of questions that are going to be asked on this application. And it's pretty simple. If I remember correctly, it's really just like name, phone number, address. Janine, you popped on again.
Yeah, sorry, I have manager popping in in and out of my office right now with an emergency data pool. I apologize. Yes, the application is pretty basic: name, address, phone number, email if they have email, and then those demographic questions. And those are not required. So if they choose to not answer those, then that's fine. And then a signature. That's it. I mean, it's a very simplistic application.
And it looks like Janine, sorry, that they wanted to see maybe they can have a preview of that application.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We don't have it fully mocked out yet. We've got the old pilot program application, and basically we're using that and adding in the new demographic questions that the communities wanted. So we'll be really just kind of doing some work to that area of the application. And once we have it all put together, we can definitely share a copy, you know, a PDF copy of that to the team here.
And so for the most part, it was the application and then proof of address. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So the only documentation they have to send in is proof of residency. So we recommend like a power bill, PG&E, or water and garbage, something that's a service tied to the address, where it shows the address, their name, and then whoever the provider is. We've had some people try to use other things like a cell phone bill. And I'm like, well, while it might be mailed to that address, that doesn't say that you live there. Or yeah, I mean, you can live anywhere and have your mail sent somewhere. So we try to use something that is a service tied to that physical location. And sometimes we ran into situations where maybe the wife applied, but the bill is under the husband's name. And so we just give them a quick phone call and we get that clarification. We make note of it and we move on. So we worked with applicants with all sorts of different scenarios, and 9.8% of their 9.8 out of 10 times we could figure out a way to make it work. There were a few that they couldn't give us anything. And that usually means that they don't really live there. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Janine. I remember we had a couple of those situations in Shafter on our very first event where we had like neighbors wanting to use their neighbor's address, and that wouldn't be fair, right? Because then if that neighbor got it, then that meant that they wouldn't be able to then be eligible to get it. So we definitely, that's the only reason why we asked for this proof of residency, since we only have one per address. All righty. Okay, so it sounds like we have the questions and next steps. Anything else before we log off?
Nothing on my end. Just thanks for the quick movement on this. It's really excited to finally see it now come to fruition and finally get units out.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
neat to see all the planning that's going into the event too. That's cool stuff. I don't have a lot of familiarity with that side of things, so it's neat to see.
Just want to echo what Kevin and Kyle said. I'm very excited. I think this is awesome. I also love that it's all coming together with the Valley-wide as well. So everybody who needs one gets one.
Yeah, and this will be the first like one of these types of events in Stockton community, correct? Like we haven't had one of these types of events.
No, just the smog events.
Oh yeah. No, so this will be fun. Janine and I are like, we've got this. Eric too. We're like, we've got this. We've got a couple of events under our belts now. So it'll just be a challenge with the new community, but it'll all be good.
Yeah, I'm wondering too if because I remember hearing about like the smog events on like the local radio stations and stuff, and will that be something that for this type of event as well?
I think we have done that in the past where we do social media and we do some advertising, but I think it just might depend on the numbers that we have available. We probably wouldn't do a huge media campaign if we only had like, let's say 50 units, right? Because then we probably would be oversubscribed on it. But I think it would depend. We could potentially do that.
Nice.
Yeah, if you run into any issues or any challenges, I looked at the boundaries and we've done a lot of door-to-door canvassing, like in the census tracts. So you let us know if there's anything that you run into. We could help inform the process if it's new territory.
Ooh, perfect. That's great. Thank you so much, Kevin, for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, that's it then. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll be in touch with you guys for another meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
It
Good
sounds
night.
good. Yeah,
Night.
bye everybody.